to the Select Committee on the Status of Girls and Women of Color's first public input hearing. I first want to thank all of you for coming to discuss what issues impact the lives of girls and women of color and their families, an issue that is very timely during these times. Also, I'd like to thank our partners, the Santa Clara County Commission on the Status of Women, the County Office of Women's Policy, and the Legislative Women's Caucus, who helped us put this program together and develop this hearing. Before we move on to the hearing, I would also like to thank all of our panelists who are here today, and as others arrive, I will recognize them and allow them to say a few words and give them the opportunity. First of all, I feel very honored to have Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia here with us today. So we'll start on the left, my left, and allow him to introduce himself, and then we'll go down the panel. We have a supervisor here, we have a commissioner on the status of women from the state level. So you have a broad range of individuals that are eager to hear what the issues are that are on your minds facing your community, and hopefully we will create a working document that we can address the issues and make sure that our women and girls of color are successful throughout the state of California. There's one thing that we hear all the time: California leads the nation, and I believe that California will lead the nation on this issue as well. So with that, let's give a round of applause to Assembly Member Eduardo Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's great to be here in this part of your district. I'll introduce myself as Assembly Member from the 56th Assembly District. I represent Imperial and Coachella Valleys. For us, it's an important topic of conversation, as several years ago, the Select Committee on Boys and Men of Color had one of its initial hearings in our backyard, the city of Coachella, the place where I served as mayor for 10 years. That work got off the ground and is underway, and meeting some of the efforts that have now been set forward by our president with Black Lives Matter conversation that's happening, the My Brother's Keeper efforts that the president's initiative has put forward. And soon after that, the young women and members of our community said, what about us? And now those efforts in an organized manner are underway, where issues related to transportation, access to health care, quality and affordable child care, issues related to educational attainment, and those are just kind of topics that then get broken down into more specific areas, are being discussed in our district by the California Endowment and its partners on this particular topic. And so it's of much interest to me, to the constituents that I represent, again in Imperial and Coachella Valley. I'm honored to be here in your district, and I look forward to hearing from our panelists and of course what the issues here in your community, Assemblymember Campos, are prevalent, and naturally begin to tie those issues with the issues from throughout the state, develop the public policy that's necessary for the community and the lives of young women and women of color to be improved. And so I look forward to the dialogue today. I look forward to learning about the needs of this area, and thank you for allowing me to participate. If I can, just in one short minute. Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Eduardo Garcia, soy asambleísta del Distrito 56 que representa el Valle Imperial y el Valle de Coachella. Este tema es un tema muy importante que se ha iniciado hace unos años en nuestro distrito, trabajando con los jóvenes y los hombres en nuestra comunidad y inmediatamente las mujeres de nuestra comunidad que han estado organizando esfuerzos para mejorar la calidad de vida de la comunidad, pero en particular de mujeres en nuestra comunidad, nos dieron la pregunta que por qué no había un esfuerzo organizado para tener estas pláticas, igual como con los jóvenes y los hombres. Entonces es un trabajo muy importante para las personas de mi distrito y es un trabajo importante para mí. Es un placer poder estar aquí en el distrito de la asambleísta Nora Campos. Espero escuchar el diálogo que se tome a cabo esta tarde y de vuelta muy agradecido por estar aquí esta tarde.
Assemblymember Garcia, thank you so much. And Madam Chair, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Marina Illich, and I'm here on behalf of the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. And it's a privilege to be here tonight. I look forward to hearing your comments, your concerns, and really I'm here to, together with Assemblymember Campos and all of our commissioners, really take your considerations and concerns to heart as we do the work that we do in the state capitol. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. All right, just want to make sure we're all ready to change the world. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Chavez, and I'm a member of the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and I represent the downtown, the east side, and the southeast part of San Jose. I'm really just delighted that Assemblywoman Campos, and we're so excited to have another assembly member here, and Nora gets to show off her town. There's much to see. But I really am excited that Nora has brought this all back to our community. I think you all will have a lot to offer us this evening, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you. I wanted to just make an acknowledgement, and that is that in the County of Santa Clara, under the leadership of the Office of Women's Policy and the Commission on the Status of Women, we have been making, I think, big change, but not big enough and not fast enough. However, we have established a commission to fight human trafficking. We have adopted a wage theft ordinance. We have adopted a living wage ordinance. And we are now moving toward, I think, in a more active way, focusing on housing. And then one other initiative we've kicked off is a whole community process that will be led in part by the Commission on the Status of Women and also the Office of Women's Policy to start to re-examine the way we deal with intimate partner violence. I share that because I am the only woman on the Board of Supervisors, and 1 out of 5. And yet, we have had really incredible partnerships with the men on our board, and one of them is walking toward us right now, President Cortese. That looked like it was on cue. But my point is that this is a place that's ready for more and new ideas, and while we're doing a lot, I know we can do much more, and I feel so confident that we have the partners in place that will get us there. So I'm very excited to hear all of you this evening. Thank you for letting me be with you.
Thank you. And to my right, we're going to start with Supervisor Dave Cortese to introduce himself and make a few comments.
How's that? There we go. Wow, this is, I've used these microphones in a long time, and you know, there's been a lot of very significant hearings in this room over the years. This was, at one time, the Board of Supervisors chambers. That's why the seal is up here. It actually says Board of Supervisors on the top of the county seal. So you can imagine some of the historic hearings on major issues, particularly social justice issues in this county, that have been held here. But that said, this is a unique experience to have Assemblymember Nora Campos here, Chair of the Assembly Select Committee on the Status of Girls and Women of Color in California. The Assemblymember gave a very impassioned speech, talk, presentation to a couple of hundred participants that I traveled up to Sacramento with in late May on education issues as to just how important this work is. And I think she captivated everybody in the room, men and women, but particularly the young women. Many of the individuals who go on that trip with us every year to fight for education funding are in fact young people of high school age. And I just mention that because I've been looking forward to being here, to participating, to welcoming the chair of the committee here to hold this hearing in these chambers in our county, in this building, and to hear, of course, as she wants to hear, what all of you have to say in terms of testimony that can be brought back and brought back, hopefully, to policy at the state level. I want you to know, I want Assemblymember Campos to know that we are working hard here, not only with our Office of Women's Policy and our own Commission on the Status of Women on these issues, on gender equity issues, but we would like to and we look forward to working with you in some sort of legislative partnership to get this county and those who deal with this county committed by policy, by ordinance, and by state law. I know you've been working on that very seriously on gender equity and pay equity issues. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for inviting Supervisor Chavez and myself and the rest of this distinguished panel. We're very happy to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Guadalupe Rodriguez, and I am the chair of the Commission on the Status of Women for the County of Santa Clara, which has been mentioned a couple of times by the supervisors here. And I'm really excited to be here today, just as everybody else. The work of the Commission on the Status of Women is guided by the voices and lived experiences of the community members that we serve and represent on the Commission. So this is incredibly important for us in sort of what we see as our focus and the work that we're doing in the community and the way that we advise the Board of Supervisors and the recommendations we make. And also, of course, at every level of government, knowing about the lived experiences of our communities is very important in making policy that will actually affect change in our worlds. And so I'm really excited to be here. I'm honored to have the opportunity to sit here with such wonderful leaders and role models of mine. And I look forward to the testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we go into the discussion, I do want to just touch on a few housekeeping items. I wish you could see what I see right now, a room full of eager individuals that know that this is an issue that we need to start addressing. We have been addressing this issue, but we really have been addressing this issue in silos. And I do have a bill that is coming forward, and it's AB 80, which is hopefully creating an interagency task force that will address issues that the boys and men of color have been working on. And that's where I got the idea that we needed to move forward and start working on this, as my colleague mentioned, with the work that they had done around boys and men of color. We needed to start creating the same framework for girls and women of color, because those issues are just as important as any other issues. So the fact that we have a full room, I want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to share their thoughts, their ideas. The whole idea of this hearing is to make sure that we are hearing from the community, the voices of the people that work with girls and women of color throughout the state of California. Someone asked me, how many hearings are we going to have during this select committee? I hope at least a minimum of 4. It could be more, but we're starting here in Santa Clara because I thought it was important to start here, where we have an infrastructure, as my 2 colleagues on the Board of Supervisors have talked about, an infrastructure that already is doing some phenomenal things. So before we go any further, I do want to recognize a former colleague, but consider him still a colleague, who is on the council City of San Jose, Oshkara. So please welcome him. So in order to maximize participation, I ask everyone wishing to speak to keep their comments limited to 2 minutes. And hopefully we will have someone here that will be able to keep you on track. One other housekeeping thing, if you need direction to anything, the ladies' room, the men's room, there's someone outside as you checked in that can give you that direction. And anything else that you may need, there are individuals out front at a table that will be able to help you. The timekeeper will hold up a card that says 30 seconds when you have 30 seconds left. And I am very excited about the fact that we're going to be entering this today. And hopefully, as we take the information back, we create a working document that can be used to create policy, as my colleague mentioned as well, that will make true impacts and change the lives of girls and women of color. Having worked on this issue for over 20 years, and I look out in the audience and I see partners that I started working with on this issue 20 years ago. 2 of them are actually sitting up here with me and have the opportunity to work with 3 other new panelists up here on these issues. It is very dear to my heart, and I am hoping that as we move forward on this, that everyone in this room will take a little piece of this and own it and make sure that it continues to be at the forefront for the dialogue as we move forward into the new year. California has one of the largest wage gaps for African American women and Hispanic women. African American women making 64 cents, Latina women making 44 cents to the dollar, compared to $1 a white man makes. According to a survey by the Asian and Pacific Islander Institution on Domestic Violence, 41 to 60% of the API respondents reported experienced domestic violence during their lifetime. In Santa Clara County, among all groups of women, African American women are the greatest risk of poor mental health. Asian women are the least likely to have preventative screening for cervical cancer of any other group of women. I share these statistics with you and these thoughts as we move forward so that you can start thinking about what are things that you want to share with us. Last year, more than 90% of sexual exploited youth identified in Santa Clara County through a special pilot program where girls of color were participated. In Santa Clara County, Latinas are least likely to be ready for kindergarten. Most likely to become teen mothers. And along with the African American girls, are least likely to graduate from high school. Now, if those statistics that I just went over don't make us pause, that we have real issues. They're not surprising. I'm sure that they don't surprise any of you. And then this other one, and I'm really encouraged to see people from the judicial system here, and is that we know that in juvenile hall and in the correctional system that Latinas and the rest of the women of color are the ones that are filling those institutions. And the last statistic that I started with is that we found that low-wage workers are predominantly females and women of color. I stated earlier why it was important to start this committee. I do want to share with you that the Speaker for the State of California, Speaker Atkins, did make at a point to let me know that this is something that she wants to make sure that we at the state have all the resources necessary so that we can gather this information and that we can actually move this information forward. This public input hearing will help us to make sure that we create policies at the state, and more than anything, I'm hoping that it will also create a framework for us to create policy here in Santa Clara and elaborate on what we're already doing here. So having said that, I would ask that we begin moving forward with the panelists. And the first one is Esther Peralez-Dieckmann.
My name is Esther Peralez-Dieckmann. I'm the Director of the Office of Women's Policy for the County of Santa Clara. And on behalf of the Office of the County Executive, Jeffrey Smith, it's my pleasure to be here and to share just a little bit about the state of women and girls in Santa Clara County. The Office of Women's Policy is currently focused on several key areas where the needs of women are particularly compelling and urgent. In the area of women's violence and crime, we've partnered with the Commission on the Status of Women over the last decade to look at the needs of incarcerated women in our local facility. We found that women represent approximately 13% of the population in the jails, but they're often overlooked as the systems are built around the needs of violent male offenders. Latinas comprise the largest segment of our jail population. 78% of women at Elmwood Jail are mothers, and over a third of those mothers have children under the age of 5. 85% of our incarcerated women have experienced domestic violence, and roughly half of those women experience childhood physical and sexual abuse. It's no wonder that violence against women is considered one of the biggest global crises of the 20th and 21st centuries. Domestic and sexual violence disproportionately impact women and girls of color, and their needs and experiences must be taken into account. The Department of Justice reports that almost 50% of Native American females have been raped, beaten, or stalked by an intimate partner. The National Institute of Justice also found that Hispanic women are more likely than non-Hispanic women to be raped by a current or former intimate partner. 1 in 5 women is sexually assaulted while in college. Human trafficking is currently a priority for the County of Santa Clara, and the San Francisco Bay Area has some of the highest rates of human trafficking of any region in the U.S. Victims of human trafficking are overwhelmingly women of color, U.S. citizens, and exploited both in commercial sex work and labor trafficking. We continue to work with partners at the local and state level to examine our systems in order to identify gaps and ensure the safety and well-being of victims and their families. Women's economic security and prosperity are another priority for the county and for our office. The gender wage gap persists, and our data shows that the wage gap in Santa Clara County is actually higher than the national average. In partnership with our commission and other partners in the community, we focused in recent years on the needs of vulnerable, low-wage workers, many of whom are women. These workers are subject to exploitation and abuses in the workplace, but local governments can play a key role in protecting these workers and ensuring that they do not do business with companies who violate wage and hour laws. And the County of Santa Clara has been a leader, passing ordinances and policies that protect workers, that ensure living wages for all workers, and that we have ethical and good business practices among our contractors. We want to continue to work to ensure that every worker has a safe and healthy workplace, earns a living wage, and that women have access to training and education in non-traditional sectors that hold the promise of better wages, benefits, and a career path. And finally, we will continue our work to ensure investments in programs, services, and education, and training of women and girls, because as we've seen across the globe, when we make these investments, these are benefits not only felt by the women, but the entire community, and not just today, but for generations to come. And so I'm very proud to be part of one of 2 offices in the country devoted to the needs of women and girls in county government. It's an exciting opportunity. We have leadership like we've never had before at the county level, and we look forward to working with the members of the community, with legislators at every level, to make sure that we're working together to improve the lives of women and girls. Thank you.
I'd like
to also announce that we have another speaker, Jennifer Reich, who is stuck in traffic, but she's on her way here and she'd be happy to close.
When she gets here, we can stop the testimony and allow her to add to the dialogue, and then we can continue the testimony. Before we go into the public testimony, and you're probably wondering, why are there so few speakers addressing on what the issue is? That's almost kind of like speaking to the choir. A lot of you work day in and day out. So the whole idea of this hearing is to make sure that we as policymakers are hearing from you on the issues that you believe that we may not be addressing, or we may be overlooking, or that we're not spending enough time on. That's what this whole hearing is about, and that's what this is going to be about tonight. So before I go that, I just want to recognize individuals that are here regarding different entities. We have Isa Herrera, president of the Allen Rock School District, represented here. We have Darcy Green, Santa Clara County Board of Education. We have a representative from Mayor Sam Liccardo's office, another representative from Senator Bob Walkowski, another representative from Assemblymember Kansan Chu's office, another representative from Assemblymember Gonzalez's office, and Ms. Gonzalez is also from Southern California. So across the state of California, my colleagues believe this issue is important. We also have Carla Collins, Santa Clara County Office of Women's Policy, and we have someone here from the Santa Clara County Probation Chief's Office, Laura Garnett. So thank you for all being here. It is encouraging to know that different entities are interested in this. So having said that, we're going to go into public testimony. Your thoughts, if you have a statement, if you have a question that you want answered, we're recording all this, and as we continue to move forward, that will be incorporated into hopefully a living document. As I stated earlier, we will have two people doing the timing. If you are from an organization, let me know, so that you're representing a group of individuals. Let me know when you introduce yourself, so that I can allow you a little bit more time, since this is something that you probably have been working on. Everyone's testimony is important today, and I look forward to that. So with that, there were several of you that actually registered online, and we're going to hopefully, to save time and make sure that we use the bulk of our time hearing from you all. I believe that you were each given a number, and so 1 through 10, if you can line up so that we can make sure that we can take the first one and then the second one's ready to go, and so on. So it doesn't really matter who goes first in that order, but we just want to make sure that we start. So whoever would like to start, please come up to the podium right here, and your name, if you're with an organization, state your organization, and we will start the time.
Hi, my name is Diana Marroquin. I'm representing the American Legion. I'm a veteran. I served in the military from 1979 to 1998. And for me, the military was the absolute way of life to go. I loved the military. And it represented for me everything that I always wanted to do within my life. The military is not perfect. There are a lot of things that could stand improvement, but then there are a lot of things on the outside that could stand a lot of improvement as well. I had good supervisors that were both male and female, Anglo and minority, and I had bad supervisors that were male and female, Anglo and minority. And from 1993 to 1998, from around 1990 to 1998, approximately, I went through a very difficult time as the full-time member of the National Guard. And a lot of people are unfamiliar with the National Guard. It is a branch of the military, and they have full-time members and part-time members. Unfortunately, the National Guard does not, in the state of California, doesn't have a state inspector general. And the process of trying to file a claim or a complaint against the National Guard or against a supervisor or commander or manager within the military of the National Guard is extremely difficult. It continues to remain so today. In fact, a few years ago, there was a problem at Moffett Field, which is where I was stationed, that meant that the woman who was having these particular problems had to go to NBC and to bring some attention onto the problem. That disappointed me because that occurred almost 20 years after I left the military, and more than 20 years when the problem occurred to me. The military, the state National Guard, is incredibly important for the function of the state and the active duty military. Inspector General office would go a long way towards helping to remediate any kind of problems that occur within the military, within the National Guard. So this is something that I entreat my representatives to pay attention to in the future, particularly the state representatives, the legislature, senators, and assembly people, to consider the implementation or the development of an Inspector General office for the State National Guard. It has been recommended by other military units around other states, but the state of California still hasn't done that.
Thank you for your time. And if you have anything in writing and you'd like to submit it, you can hand it to Esther, and we will make sure that we have that as well as testimony.
Good evening, committee members. My name is Aimee Reedy. I'm with the Public Health Department and representing our health officer and new public health director, Dr. Sarah Cody, who was not able to be here this evening. Much of our work in the Public Health Department centers on addressing health disparities to ensure that all our residents experience optimal health. Health outcomes and factors that contribute to those outcomes, however, are not equally distributed across the population. And our county has distinct and concerning health disparities that are affecting our women and girls of color. I could give you a lot of data, but I'm going to give you just a few examples. The teen pregnancy rate has already been referred to for Latinas as more than twice the overall county rate and 6 times the rate for white teens. For STDs, the chlamydia rate for African American women is 10 times that of white women. 10.4% of Latinas experience physical or psychological intimate partner violence during pregnancy, compared to 2% of white women. I'd like to highlight 2 areas of our work that addresses such disparities. First, the infant mortality rate for babies born to Black women is double the county rate. And to address this disparity, the department provides the Black Infant Health Program, which is primarily supported by the state, but also by the county. This program has a strong history of success, but currently can only accept women during pregnancy. However, the conditions that lead to health disparities and low birth weights among African American babies do not begin and end with pregnancy, but rather are experienced over the life course. Providing more flexibility to support Black women before, during, and after pregnancy could greatly enhance the impact of these types of programs. Another factor that can limit success of women and girls of color is intimate partner violence. The department is delivering a comprehensive Healthy Teen Relationships campaign to address this issue. However, our reach is limited due to a lack of dedicated resources to systematically implement programs in all our schools and communities. Did she just hold up the sign? 2 minutes goes by fast.
Just wrap it
Okay,
up.
thank you. I just want to thank you for your attention and commitment to these issues related to women and girls of color.
Thank you.
Well, the sign is a 30-second sign for future speakers. That's helpful. Then we'll hold up the time. Sorry.
So they're going to translate, so she gets a little bit more time. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Irma Navarro, madre líder de Sirens. Tengo 4 hijos y como madre y padre a la vez he tenido desafíos en mi vida de ser 2 personas, madre y padre en una sola mujer.
Good evening, my name is Irma Navarro. I am a mother and a leader of Siren. I have 4 gorgeous sons, and as a mother, I have had difficulties in my life. One of these is being both a mother and a father to my children.
Con el respeto que se merece asambleísta Nora Campos, es un placer tenerla aquí. Agradezco este diálogo de mujer y niñas, haciéndole saber que ahora que está en su posición empoderada, apoye nuestras comunidades de apoyar 100% a la mujer y la mujer la estaremos apoyando siempre.
With the respect that Assemblywoman Nora Campos deserves, I am very grateful for this dialogue. And as for women and girls, we need to have this position to empower our communities and empower the women. At the same time, the women support one another.
Un factor preocupante de atmósfera en nuestra comunidad y vidas es sentirnos seguros, en un ambiente seguro, tomando en cuenta que oponentes están trabajando en desarrollar y trabajar con la migración junto con la policía. Un punto de vista muy importante, asambleísta Nora Campos, es que corremos el riesgo de lastimar pólizas de la comunidad, derechos civiles y la unidad de la familia. Si una mujer está en peligro y es ella misma y su hija tienen violencia doméstica extremadamente, es muy difícil llamar a la policía por temor a ser deportadas o por temor a sufrir algo en su vida que no quieren correr un riesgo.
One of the important factors in our community and our lives is to feel secure and safe in our communities. And one thing that challenges this is the future work that ICE might be having with the local police officers. It is very important, Assemblywoman Nora, not to run this risk and not to harm the plots of our community, our civil rights, and the unity of the family. If a woman is in danger or her daughters of domestic violence, for fear and terror, they won't contact the police because there will be fear and deportation, which will separate them from their families.
Asambleístas, en este momento les pedimos fijar su mirada hacia estas mujeres que han pasado por violencia doméstica, que no apoyen esta medida. Nos urgimos a los oficiales electos y a las autoridades de la ley que tomen extremada caución con el programa.
We ask you to turn your eyes towards the women and the girls who have suffered extreme domestic violence, and we ask you and beg not to go against this policy. Police, elected officials, we ask you guys and the law enforcement to take extreme caution with this program.
Crear para mujeres grupos de fuerza y poder exclusivo para mujeres, empoderarlas y crear unidad de fuerza, igualdad. Nuestra voz vale y tiene poder, sin distinción de raza, color, origen, estatus, creando liderazgo en programas productivos de apoyo para apoyar a nuestras hijas y crear un impacto en comunidades fuertes, seguras y sanas.
We need to create programs for our women, programs where they will empower them, programs where they will create unity, no matter the color, the race, or the origin, and give them a voice.
Crear trabajos donde las mujeres sobresalen en el área laboral. Muchas gracias, asambleísta, y a todos los presentes en este momento. Gracias por escucharme. Mi nombre es Irma Navarro y estoy para apoyarlos en todo sentido. Como seguro lo harán ustedes con nosotros. Muchas gracias.
We need to create jobs for our women where they will grow. And thank you very much, Assemblywoman, and everybody else who is here today in the community. Thank you. My name is Norma. Hi again. I'm the next speaker. Good evening. My name is Sandra. I am an intern with Siren also in the UFW Foundation. I live in Garo with my parents, but I'm a current senior at UCLA and a CSO of the police department over there. As a daughter of immigrant parents and as a woman of color who studies science and genetics, I have found that one of the very strong difficulties we have for our community is that in our schools, if you go to school where there's more low income, you won't be prepared the same way as other people who go to schools who are from a community of higher income. At UCLS, I felt myself at a disadvantage, even though it's a public school, because I was not prepared with chemistry, biology, the same way that other people who went to private schools or other schools where they were in better communities like Palo Alto or Beverly Hills. And another thing I felt was that since my parents cannot speak English, they never went past 5th grade in Mexico. At home, I didn't have any help for homework. I feel that we need to have more after-school programs where the kids with immigrant parents, even though they just are there to help us, they don't have the same, they can't offer us all the same amount of time. And when we're at home, we have no one to turn to. If we have younger siblings, they can't help us. And some of our older siblings, they might not have graduated from school, they might have gone to gangs, and we need to have more of that. We need to have more help for our children, and our girls especially. Especially in science, we don't have enough girls in science, and much less women of color in STEM. Also, another thing is that I feel is that, as myself, I fear that the people you care about, with as he was referring to earlier, the cooperation with ICE and the local police enforcement, that's one of the things that we should take in consideration for our community, because children who are parents who don't have the same legal status of citizenship or legal residence, we have that fear that maybe our parents won't be there home one day, or they might get deported in a raid at work if this cooperation goes together. So this is one of the things that preoccupies our mind when we should be focusing all of our energies in school. So I just feel we need to have more programs for children of immigrants, especially girls who want to go into STEM. And thank you for your time and for this dialogue. Have a good evening.
We come representing the same organization, so we would like a little bit more than 2 minutes if possible.
We will give you 3 minutes together.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Fabiola Fernandez, and this is my colleague, Dania de la Cruz, and we come representing the EDGA program as part of the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley. And today we come to speak about Latinos and Latinas in the media. Take a moment and think about the last movie or TV show you watched that had a Latino or a Latina presence in it. Were they over-sexualized, only valued for their bodies, or portrayed as simple janitors or gardeners? Chances are, you answered at least yes to one or more of these options. And what does this show? It shows that the main problem with the portrayal of Latinos and Latinas in the media is a generalized underrepresentation and negative portrayal. Furthermore, we are sexualized and viewed through the lens of various stereotypes, which all suggest a generalized lack of intelligence that other people portray Latinos as having. Finally, there's not enough of us in positions of power. For example, in 2012, Hispanics composed 17% of the entire US population, and this number is expected to reach 31% by 2060. Of these, 67% of Latinos consume English media, which shows just how critical it is for the English media outlets to portray Latinos as they truly are, as leaders in the community. Finally, from 1995 to 2004, Latinos constituted less than 1% of all news stories, and of this less than 1%, 66% of these stories focused on crime and illegal immigration. Now think about it this way. Latinos as a whole are portrayed negatively, and women in society tend to, in general, regardless of their race, be portrayed in even more negative light than men. If you add to this the fact that the women are of color, you get an even more underrepresentation and a more negative portrayal. So this problem is magnified. Finally, current shows such as Devious Maids that have gone on for various seasons portray Latinas as sexual, objectified, and feisty. Are they showing that we are leaders? No, they are not. And as a woman of color myself, a Latina, this pains me. Even though we're large numbers portrayed in society, the Latino inclusion continues to be less and less.
So again, the Latino population in the United States is expanding, but the underrepresentation and negative portrayal of Latinos and Latinas in the media is not improving, which means the problem will get worse and worse, and this affects everybody. People who don't know us well will have preconceived notions of us based on the media, and they might think we're all gangsters, criminals, or maids and sexy, just as the media portrays us. And this limits the opportunities that we have, and others miss out on us.
So what can we do, and what can you help us achieve?
By partnering through organizations such as National Hispanic Media Coalition and Bay Area Star Organization, as well as others, we can ensure that part of our annual budget for different counties of California are partnering with these associations so that we can host conventions such as these and invite Latinos in high school to learn more about how they can become involved in careers in the media. Because only by getting the youth involved can we ensure that the leaders of tomorrow will represent Latinas and Latinos in a way that truly represents who we are and who we want to be and achieve in society.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paula Stanislaw. I'm representing the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office. I'm a Deputy District Attorney assigned to the Santa Clara County Human Trafficking Task Force. Human trafficking impacts girls and women of color and their families. Since 2006, over 98% of human trafficking victims in cases that the District Attorney's Office has prosecuted were female. Over 98% also of human trafficking cases involved commercial sexual exploitation. 87% of human trafficking cases that the DA's office has prosecuted involved minor victims. A majority of human trafficking cases over the last 2.5 years involved domestic U.S. citizen victims. According to the CSEC Service Response Team, 87% of identified human trafficking victims between 2014 and 2015 were girls of color. Several factors promote success in our fight against human trafficking. Obviously, investigation and prosecution are top priority, and we're very fortunate that our County Board of Supervisors is extremely supportive of this. The county board has funded the task force that I am on, that was spearheaded by Supervisor Chavez and President Cortese. I'm lucky because part of the biggest responsibility that I have on that task force is to raise education and awareness. And from my experience, I think we need mandatory human trafficking training in middle schools and high schools. I've been to a handful of high schools in our community, and I've been surprised to learn how little human trafficking training there has been, given that these girls and boys are a huge target population for traffickers. I think it's also important that we continue a coordinated effort of outreach to our immigrant populations, because fear of deportation is a huge factor or hurdle of these victims, particularly labor trafficking victims, to reporting human trafficking to law enforcement. I also think we need support for victim advocate services, particularly for those who speak a variety of Asian languages. Our massage parlors have mostly women, Asian women, found in those massage parlors, and one law enforcement agency said at one massage parlor they had at least 7 victims who spoke 7 different Asian languages. So we need more support of victim advocates coming out with law enforcement so that they can create rapport with these victims to hopefully help victims feel comfortable and be open about their victimization. And finally, I think we must continue support of anti-child abuse efforts. A majority of human trafficking victims are victims of prior abuse, and that makes more girls and women vulnerable to trafficking. So if we address the risk factor, we can reduce the risk of being trafficked. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Nick Burchard. I'm with the Santa Clara County Probation Department. And as we heard earlier about women and girls involved in the justice system, and that was certainly on your target and on your radar. I'm here to promote a one-day conference with the Santa Clara County Office of Women's Policy and the Probation Department. We're pleased to present the one-day conference on October 22nd, 2015. The conference is called Breaking Silos, Changing Systems, Meeting the Needs of Justice-Involved Women and Girls in Santa Clara County. We'll address the long-standing and current issues facing women and girls involved in the justice system. Now we could speak for days on this issue of girls and women that are involved in the justice system and how they get there and why they're there. And yes, it's true that girls and women commit the same types of crimes that boys and men do, but the reasons why they commit those crimes are so different, and there are so many deep layered reasons as to why that is, but yet our systems are set up to treat them the same. And whether that's in the jails, whether it's in the prisons, whether that's in the local communities. So we're here at this conference to try to present and break down those silos so that we can all work together, develop policies that we can then hopefully put in place as certainly as a county within our systems and the courts and the probation departments and all our CBOs that we work with, so that we can look at those systems and how can we better treat the girls and women that are in our system so that the outcomes are certainly more beneficial to them. Thank you.
Good evening, Assemblymember Campos, Garcia, Supervisor Chavez, Supervisor Cortese, and Commissioner. My name is Angelica Ramos, and I'm currently the Policy Associate at Bill Wilson Center, an agency in Santa Clara County dedicated to serving homeless youth and families over the past 30 years. And before I'd like to start, I'd like to thank the Office of Women's Policy for inviting me to give public comment today, because I believe that we have the real opportunity to come together for one of the county's most vulnerable populations, homeless women and children. Women and families make up the fast-growing segment in the United States homeless population. And homeless women differ from homeless men in their circumstances, pathways to homelessness, physical and mental health characteristics, and homelessness-related health risks. And the difference between them is that they are those who experience their homelessness is most pronounced in their attachment to children and families. Per the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, 81% of adults in homeless families are women. I'm going to skip a lot of the data because I don't have a lot of time. Yep, I don't. So I do want to point out that California has the largest population of homeless students in the country and twice the rate of homeless students on the national average. According to the National Center on Family Homelessness, California ranks 48th in child homelessness, with over 500,000 homeless children counted in the 2012-2013 study, which is different from our point in time count because of our narrow definition at the federal level. I'm here to ask that, first thank Supervisor Cortese for the Homeless Task Force, and to ask that we be intentional about collecting data so that we can inform our policy here in Santa Clara County. If we corral, unify, and overlay the data, we can work collaboratively and more effectively with our resources here. Statewide, I think that we should also be intentional about bringing different sectors here and invest in workforce training. Thank you so much.
Ms. Ramos, you may leave the data if you'd like to with Esther, if you'd like to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eileen Hunter. I'm representing the Women's Gathering Place. It's a one-year-old drop-in center for single unaccompanied homeless women. Most of them are women of color. They come and they tell us their stories of being homeless, trauma that they've experienced, sexual and physical abuse. It's very difficult to get a homeless woman a bed in a domestic violence shelter. I was a case manager working with women in the jungle, and if you are homeless and you don't have a phone, or you have a phone that doesn't work, you have to call every morning at 8 in the morning. It's an impossible situation, and there aren't enough beds. The women that come to us, they're too physically ill or mentally ill to work, too young for Social Security, most are 50 plus years, and if they have Social Security, they can't even afford to rent a room in a house in Santa Clara County. I'd like to thank Councilmember Clara and Supervisor Chavez for making it possible for us to get a shower for the women. We now have a washer and dryer. But what we're really trying to build is a community for women. I mean, they really need this space just to come and just chill out and get away. I can use one of their words. I I used to hate Monday, but now I love Mondays because I have a place to go. I like to come, get away from my husband, have a good hot meal, use a real toilet, and be around the other ladies. I met a woman on a bus, she told me her name was Brooke, I don't think that's her name. Here's her picture. I took her picture on the VTA because I commuted to Stanford and I was always on the bus. And we had an hour to chat. She got on the bus in the morning after the Sunnyvale Armory closed. She had all her possessions. She had severe osteoporosis. She was hunched over. And she's riding the bus, and it just seemed so unethical, so immoral, so wrong, that I changed the path of my life, and I started researching this. And as a result, there's Women's Gathering Place. So thanks for listening.
Good evening, distinguished panel. For the sake of time, I pass all the platitudes, but my name is Marcia Rincon-Gallardo. I am the Executive Director of Noxtin, Equal Justice for All, and I work in partnership with the National Compadres Network. I'm here for 4 points, to encourage increased detention reform in every single county in the state of California. For 20 years, we know it's time-tested, proven effective all over this country. Huge decreases in youth of color sitting in detention. But for girls particularly who have many issues of trauma, we want to encourage increased use of healing-informed curriculums such as Shimachli, that we received a small grant from OJJDP to implement in Monterey County, where we will implement the curriculum with girls, Latina girls on probation, and implement also a program where we build their capacity to understand the system, where then they can sit at the policy table to inform the system, the juvenile justice system, on how to make improvements, things to make system improvements, such as things that can work and don't work for Latina girls. We know that across this country, Latinos still counted as whites. So we want to encourage, that's my 3rd point, that Latinos get counted as Latinos throughout this state of California, so that we know exactly what their offense, their geography is, where they come from, because most of the times when we find what the location of services are being given for kids on probation or in the juvenile justice system, it is not in the neighborhoods where they come from. And last but not least, we want a lot of our detention reform to be community-centered, where community can sit as equal partners at the table to help inform what changes need to be made. Thank you.
So we'll ask from 11 to 20 to start lining up to speak.
Good afternoon. I'm Chaplain Louann Roberts. I represent CIC Ministries, or Correctional Chaplaincy Services. We are the chaplains in the jails, providing to many faith groups. And as a chaplain, I see a lot of women, 444 in the jails today. And 11% of them are African American, which is, or 11% higher, than the population in the county. 21% of our Latinas, 21% higher in the jails than in the county. So that means, as a chaplain, the women that I serve, 70% of them are women of color. So many of the needs that I am going to speak about are needs of women of color. I've been serving there for 13 years and have heard many, many stories, many of which have been expressed today. It mainly comes down to me, success comes down to respect. And respect in the jails is huge. Without respect, people suffer greatly. So respect is an attitude that females are different than males, that in custody they require different types of services than men. Ask any man if he can treat his wives and daughters the way he treats the guys, and they will say definitely no. So respect is important. Multicultural diversity, for an understanding for officers, staff, and jail personnel about language, about faith. People respond differently to grief. We do all the crisis death notifications, and people handle that differently from different cultures. And oftentimes officers don't understand why a woman would fall to the ground with despair. It might be different than a male might be, or a different culture. Substance abuse education is so important, and many of the women don't have that in higher security areas. So mental health, education, faith, domestic violence, and trauma education is so important in the jails. Thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless you.
Good evening. I'm Louise Person, a member of the American Association of University Women. Women and girls in Santa Clara County are challenged in 4 main areas: education, economics, health, and crime and violence. The most challenged demographic of all are women and girls of color. To address this concern, AAUW partners with the Office of Women's Policy to present an annual leadership conference for high school girls and their adult allies, the Strong Girls, Strong Women Conference. Our target demographic is the most marginalized and most underserved group of girls and women in the county. To ensure that everyone has access the entire day, including breakfast and lunch, is free of charge. This requires thousands of dollars in funding from our supporters. Strong Girls, Strong Women provides the unique opportunity for girls and women of color to be empowered, to be strong, to be confident and involved members of their community. Workshops address major areas of need and have included dating violence, funding college, finances for teens, recognizing eating disorders, sexual harassment at school, and career alternatives. Understanding how the media portrays women and girls and how this impacts us as a sex is an important part of the conference. Local women leaders share their own journeys to empowerment and the obstacles they've overcome and continue to face. And they are important models for our girls and women of color. If you ask every woman in this room, each one would share her own stories of discrimination. The Strong Girls, Strong Women Conference provides girls and women of color the opportunity for serious discussion about their lives and futures. As one young woman said to me, "I never heard of these ideas before." Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Esther Gutierrez, and I'm here on behalf of Working Partnerships USA. Working Partnerships is a community organization that aims to advance the movement for a more just economy. We know from our work that a just economy means all families have access to health care, affordable housing, and access to transportation. But one of the most important aspects is access to quality jobs. Our Quality Jobs campaign, Silicon Valley Rising, is a comprehensive effort to build a tech economy that works for everyone. With Silicon Valley lauded in popular culture for innovation and prosperity, the narrative is often silent on the conditions of contract workers on tech campuses, and even more so for contract workers who are women of color. In the Silicon Valley, the tech economy has created another category of low-wage jobs that provide very little room to support oneself, much less a family. According to a 2015 study by the Center for Popular Democracy, part-time workers and women of color are more susceptible to irregular work hours and low-quality jobs. This presents a considerable problem, especially if the woman has familial or educational responsibilities. This lack of stability is sadly commonplace for many women of color who, in comparison to their white counterparts, are twice as likely to work an hourly job and twice as likely to be paid under $15 an hour.
With an estimated 31% of jobs in the Silicon Valley paying under $60 an hour, women and their families cannot support themselves, even with 2 working parents. We urge leading companies, elected officials, and community members to join the fight for a living wage and a fair work week for our women and girls of color. When women of color win, we all win. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth Silver-Tobe, and I'm the supervising attorney of the Alexander Communities Law Center, coordinator of the Wage Theft Coalition in Santa Clara County, legal services chair for the South Bay Coalition to End Human Trafficking, and a founding member of the Equal Pay Collaborative of the Bay Area. And I'd like to speak on 3 subjects. One of them is wage theft, the other one is human trafficking, and the last one is equal pay. I think you've been provided with a pie chart of our law center clinics and the percentages of Latina, Asian, and African American women who avail themselves of our services. For employment, which is primarily wage theft, discrimination, and harassment, it's 28%. Consumer law, notarial fraud, etc. Other issues regarding credit, unscrupulous people taking advantage of women. There is 34.4%, and 100% of our immigration clinic are Latino, Asian, or African American women. I worked at the EOC, and I've seen egregious sexual harassment cases and rape cases for janitors, security guards, and low-income workers. With regard to human trafficking, I'd like to read a quote. Latinas, African Americans, and indigenous women are disproportionately affected by human trafficking, according to Nora Ramos, who's executive director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to abolishing modern-day slavery. At our clinic, we see women who are affected by labor trafficking and sex trafficking. Finally, with regard to equal pay, Latinas receive 54 cents to every dollar a man makes, and African American women receive 64 cents. These problems need to be ameliorated, and we need local government help. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adriana Caldera, and I am here this evening speaking on behalf of the YWCA Silicon Valley. Our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women, and we work extensively with women and girls of color and with individuals from various immigrant communities. And a large portion of the work that we do is specifically centers on helping and provide support and resources to those who are survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. We've encountered an increase in the number of domestic violence survivors who have had difficulties with language access when interacting with systems designed to protect them. We recently worked with a young woman, a monolingual Spanish speaker, who suffered verbal, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse at the hand of her abuser. During a recent altercation, her partner physically assaulted her and verbally abused her and her child who was present. She called law enforcement. When the police arrived, she wasn't provided with a Spanish interpreter and instead had to communicate with an officer that had limited Spanish-speaking capabilities. She was arrested, and the money that she had been saving to attempt to escape her abusive environment went to pay for her bail instead. Additionally, we've had reports of other survivors being turned away from police stations when they go to file a report because there was no staff available who spoke the appropriate language at the time. We need to ensure that our community has the appropriate systems and means in place to ensure survivors' physical safety and to ensure that their voices are being heard. We need to maintain positive relationships with our local law enforcement and to ensure that women and girls feel safe in reporting crimes of domestic violence and sexual assault, especially in the wake of so many incidents that have been highlighted in the national media where women and girls of color have been violated through state-sponsored violence. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Esau Herrera. I'm president of the Board of Trustees of Elm Rock Elementary School District. Thank you, Assemblymember Campos, for bringing attention to the challenges that our girls of color face. Welcome to San Jose, Assemblymember Garcia. Social scientists have been unanimous in noting that the power, the tremendous power and positive influence that role models can bring to our boys and girls of color, noting that Eastside Union High School District and the Elm Rock Elementary School District are doing something about that. On Saturday, October 17th, at Oro Falls High School in East San Jose, we'll be holding our annual Latina Role Model Conference. We'll bring together Latino doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, firefighters, probation officers, business executives, and other professionals to show our girls and boys of color that si se puede really does mean something. And so this year, we're exceedingly proud to note that 4 of our panelists, role model panelists, among them are Edna, who grew up in East San Jose and is coming back as engineering student at UC Berkeley. Among them is Christina, who went to school in East San Jose and is coming back as Deputy Sheriff Christina. Among them is Kiara, science teacher, coming back as science teacher for this role model conference. Among them is Clarissa, who grew up in East San Jose and come back as public relations expert. When you consider policy, I urge you to consider the power of role model programs and to allocate resources to encourage private-public partnerships to support Latino role model conference programs to impact our girls of color. Thank you for bringing attention to this, Assemblymember Campos.
Good afternoon, my name is Alejandra Reyes. I am here on behalf of Siren, and I'm also part of the AIDA project with the Latina Leadership Coalition. I want to start with a quote. Wild tongues cannot be tamed, they can only be cut. And that is by Gloria and Louann. My tongue has been many times told to keep quiet, to hold back, be silent. And the only thing that truly let the reins go free is my education. It gave me the ability to learn, grow, and give myself and the community around me the chance to flourish. Through my education, I was able to understand my surroundings and how many times the realities around me were barriers that I had to break through. As a young, educated Chicana, it now has become clear to me that a lot of these things were targeted at me and the people around me for very specific reasons. With that in mind, and with great mentors next to me, I have began to work with underserved youth. And I observed how these beautiful brown faces filled with energy and endless potential would be pushed aside, marginalized, because they were too much work, suspended for ridiculous reasons, and all in all neglected. These situations are things that I find should be a top priority for our communities. There needs to be better dialogue on restorative circles, diverse curriculum, diverse and relatable curriculum, and cultural and ethnic sensitivity. Along with that, as I continue my work in the community and along with other great inspiring Latinas, I am also in constant fear. As Santa Clara County has considered bringing back or having a tie with ICE and local authorities, that puts me and a lot of my loved ones in constant fear. I think that in order to have a great community, run a great city, and have just a great community, we need to make sure that we have trust in those that are here to serve and protect. And by having ICE involved, I do not feel safe. And I hope that you agree with me that in order that we can be great, and to do so, we need to have that trust. Thank you so much.
Hola, buenas tardes. Hoy estoy aquí gracias a la oportunidad que Sara me brinda de ser la voz de mi comunidad. Mi nombre es Mariela Razo, soy inmigrante Y al igual que muchas mujeres emigrantes, ya en nuestros países enfrentamos retos difíciles para llegar aquí y sobrevivir.
Hi, my name is Mayela Raso. I'm an immigrant, and like many other women immigrants, we fight for our, from our countries, we face many difficulties to get here and survive.
Aunque esta comunidad nos acogió con nobleza, todavía a algunas de nuestras hermanas inmigrantes les cuesta mucho trabajo conseguir una vida digna para ellas y sus familias. Padecemos de desventaja laboral por no tener una situación legal favorable. Nos tenemos que conformar con empleos precarios y sueldos bajos. Por esa razón tenemos que trabajar más para ganar más dinero. Todo ese tiempo que estamos trabajando es tiempo que no pasamos con nuestros hijos.
Although this community has welcomed us with noble feelings, we still have many sisters who it is very hard to find work and to live a dignified life for them and their families. It is hard with our legal situation to have work that is not only in low income, It is hard for us to get jobs that are not just low wage, and it is hard to live on those wages. For those reasons, we need to work more, we need to work longer hours, we need to get more money, and we don't have time for our children. We have little access to services, social services, and basic living needs. We don't have health insurance or transportation, and we live in low-income areas.
Culturalmente nos vemos obligadas también a padecer situaciones de violencia, maltrato y discriminación.
Culturally, we live under social situations that are of violence, mistreatment, and discrimination.
Se nos ha dicho que nosotras somos las primeras maestras de nuestros hijos, pero ¿cómo les vamos a hablar de enseñarles qué es la libertad, la justicia, si tenemos que vivir en esas condiciones escondidas y con miedo?
We are told that we are the first teachers of our children, but how are we supposed to teach them this and teach them about liberty and justice if we have to live constantly in fear in these states?
¿Cómo enseñarle a nuestros hijos qué es la valentía, el honor, valores que todo buen ciudadano tiene que tener para ayudar a los demás y ser buen ejemplo si vivimos aterrados de ser deportados?
How are we supposed to teach our children what honor is, what bravery is, what values are, if we are the things that you need to be a good citizen, if we are in constant fear of being deported?
Me da temor que por esa razón mi comunidad no se atreva a denunciar los crímenes del que son víctimas por miedo a exponerse ante la policía porque saben que